Hello, welcome to the 12 Months to Marathon podcast with me, John Hill, the running podcast for the over 35s with Marathon Dreams, episode 101. I'm joined by a very special guest this evening. I'm joined by Mark Simpson. Mark, how are you?
I'm good, thanks, John. Thanks for the invite.
No, you're very welcome, sir. Thanks for joining me. I appreciate it. So, a little bit of background why I got in touch with Mark. I've asked Mark to come on today. Those of you who've listened to my podcast for a while and perhaps know what the stuff that I do, I'm always a little bit biased when I see it. When I see a very inspirational weight loss journey, because of course that's where I started many years ago, 21 years ago this year, when I started my own journey. And Mark sprung out a little bit because of sort of the way he approaches it, the way he conducts himself, the amount of weight he's lost, which we'll get into. I'll let Mark talk through all that, and then the journey Mark's on with running, really, and how he's discovered running and how that's his thing now. So, if you don't mind, Mark, as much as you're comfortable with, my friend, just tell me a little bit about your journey, then, if you don't mind.
Yeah, I mean, look, I've struggled with my weight pretty much my whole adult life. I'm 46 now, and at the start of 2025, I was 25 stone,
Right.
touching 25 stone. And I kind of New Year's Eve, I sat there and I thought to myself, I've got to give myself one more chance to do something about this here because I'm a bubbly personality. I like to be positive. I like to make people laugh. I like to think that I'm, popular with people. And it was masking, quite a lot of not depression, but I was miserable with my life,
Yeah.
because the weight I had was just not going anywhere. I tried all kinds of different things to try and get rid of the weight. I couldn't do it, but I decided to give myself one more chance at the start of last year, and thankfully, I was able to find something that worked for me, and I've managed to lose an incredible amount of weight, really. And when I look back on the last 18 months or so, or whatever it is, I can't quite believe the progress I've been able to make.
Yeah.
So it's completely life changing what's happened to me over the last year and a half. And now I'm in a phase where I'm determined to find something, which is running, really, to protect my weight loss and protect the progress I've made and make sure I never go back to where I was.
Yeah. How long? So you're 40. I mean, you're not too dissimilar from me. I'm 48. So how long did you struggle with your weight for?
It- Pretty much all my adult life. I would say
Okay.
from my early 20s, I was, starting to get heavier and not really worrying about what I ate or drank. And it was, university life wasn't kind in terms of my health. And then just things spiraled out of control, really. And by the time I was sort of in my 30s, I was becoming a real struggle for me. And I couldn't get a foothold. I was one of these people who would like Monday, possibly Tuesday, maybe Wednesday, I'd be healthy, but then by Thursday, well, it was almost the weekend, isn't it? So I'll just start again Monday. So I never really, was able to get that grasp on it. I always say to people now, balance and moderation were the two words that were completely missing from my life. I wanted to have everything that I wanted, and I wanted to have it all the time.
Okay.
And it obviously led me down a really dark corridor.
Yeah. Were you overweight as a kid?
Not really, no. No,
No.
I was
Okay.
active. I was quite a regular cricketer during my youth days. I'm
Okay.
a fast left arm over bowler in the regional leagues up in County Durham, and I actually loved my cricket. I liked playing football. I was quite active. It wasn't until really I discovered, I think probably beer.
Yeah.
It was when I decided that weight was what I would concentrate on rather than sport, unfortunately. And yeah, things just sort of spiraled out of control from there, I think.
When you, so again, I obviously know my own personal journey. A lot of that resonates with myself. What was it? Did you did you have an awareness that you were gaining that much weight? Was there any point when you just thought, oh, or was it denial? Was it? Do you understand what I'm asking there?
No, yeah, I totally do. I think, yeah, in your head you do know. But
Yeah.
then I was stuck in a cycle.
Right.
I don't know if you can relate to this, but I was stuck in a cycle. I got to a point where when I was in the, 24, 25 stone, where not that I would consider myself to have an alcohol problem, but if I had a couple of beers, it didn't seem to matter as much. But
Okay.
then also the secondary part of that was if I'd had a couple of beers, it didn't matter what I was eating either. So I could kind of enjoy what I wanted to eat and what I wanted to drink kind of guilt free because it was taking that edge away. But obviously that was a cycle, The next day, then after that, you're sort of feeling groggy and you're not wanting to eat properly. I would make excuses. My job sort of involves quite a lot of travel and antisocial hours. I'd be like, oh well, I haven't got time to properly eat things. I'll grab a sandwich here or I'll have a takeaway there. Because I haven't got time to do anything else. But of course, that's just all excuses, isn't it? And the weight just kept creeping on. And then I got to a point where I thought, this is my life. I'm never ever going to be able to
Right.
change this. I'm just going to be overweight for the rest of my life. And obviously that wasn't going to be a long life the way I was going.
Yeah. And you mentioned sort of the alcohol and the food stuff. So that was almost like a soothing mechanism for you to soothe how you felt.
Yeah, 100%. I've heard people saying, cakes or whatever it might be, they'll comfort eat like that. I sort of really enjoyed my food to such an extent that I wanted to take away the guilt. So I would have a couple of pints, and then it just didn't feel as bad to have something bad to eat. You know what I
Right.
mean? For
Okay.
some
Yeah.
reason, I don't know. And then obviously it just got into a cycle that I couldn't get out of. I tried numerous times. Sometimes it would be 2 or 3 weeks that I would manage to go where I would be healthy eating and trying to do a little bit more activity, and then things had come crashing down again, and then it was another 2 or 3 months before I managed to do anything. I lost weight probably 2013, 14 time. I lost about 6 stone.
Right.
I'd actually got into running a little bit then as well. I did the couch to 5K, started doing park runs, nothing as much as advanced as I've been able to do this time around. But and I loved it for about a year. I was running 3 times a week, and then things just slipped away again. And I'm determined that that's not going to happen this time, because I love my life at the minute. I love the confidence I've got back. I love the positivity I've got right now. So I don't want to let go of that.
What made you, after losing so much weight, what made you slip back? And the reason I'll caveat that question because I think sometimes this could be anything in life. We make some progress in anything and then we slip
Yeah,
back. What for you made you sort of? Because I gained 4 stone, I lost 3 stone when in my early 20s and then put 4 back on.
yeah,
So I know, and it's probably worse than gaining weight gradually because you have a little taste, don't you, of what it feels like. So, what would you
absolutely.
say? What made you fall off the wagon back then? Do you think? Do you remember?
I honestly don't. I don't know if I remember if there was one incident that happened, or I think it was just a gradual thing where,
Yeah,
and it was always like, oh, it's all right because I'll have this, whatever I was having to eat, or I'd have, this week off, and then I'll start again next week. I'll get
yeah,
back into my running. I'll go to the park run, and then I just never went.
right,
And then suddenly it was so out of control that I'd put more weight on than I'd actually, like you say, you put more weight on. And then it sort of doubles the misery because you remember what it felt like to be at the point that you wanted to be at.
yeah,
And then you feel further away than you ever have been, and
yeah,
it was, yeah, I just felt like a lost cause. I mean, I remember breaking down in the doctors when I was diagnosed with type 2 diabetes, I think in 2022,
yeah.
23. And like, I was so miserable that you'd think that that would spur me on to do something about it. But it was probably another year before I really challenged and tackled that issue and really met it head on. It's psychologically, it's really weird because I think people who've never had a weight problem probably won't ever understand, because it sounds so alien to them for someone to be talking about putting weight on and knowing they're harming themselves but not being able to stop. Because for someone who's never had a weight problem, it just seems really easy, because let's be honest, it isn't rocket science to just eat
No,
normally and be active. It's
yeah,
not rocket science at all. But until you've been in that situation, I think it's really difficult to really comprehend.
yeah. Well, I was going to ask you, that was going to be my next question, actually. This is and again, as much as you're comfortable with here, this is something that what the way I changed was my self-image.
Mm.
So it's how I saw myself. And
Yeah,
does that make sense? So role did that play in terms of, because obviously gaining weight, he's eating too much and not moving enough fundamentally
yeah,
from a behavioral standpoint. I mean, if we start questioning that, we're broken. It's not that,
yeah,
but
yeah.
it's more about the deepness of it, and the complexity comes from what drives that behavior. So was there any self-image, mental health problems that you have, you can put your finger on?
I I don't think there's anything like. I mean, I certainly had ups and downs in that period, but and certainly now I feel like my mental health is more stable than it was back then.
Yeah,
Because there were days where I was just like couldn't be bothered with anything really.
yeah,
But yeah, I mean, I was the kind of person who I'd get the joke in first about my weight.
right.
I'd be the one who would say, "Oh, that dessert menu, pass it over here," or are them beers for me? Do you know what I mean? I would like be the one
Yeah,
who would
yeah,
get ahead of the joke, because that was my defense mechanism, I guess. And people probably thought it was, funny, so they would make jokes as well, and it was like kind of I just had to accept that that's where I was, and that I was That was the kind of person. I think, do you know what it was? I went away on holiday last week, and it, I got sat in a seat, and it reminded me. I got sat in the very front seat of the aeroplane, and it reminded me of something that really, at the back end of 2024, one of the things that stuck in my head that wanted to make me lose weight. I was in the front seat of the plane, and it's the emergency exit area. So the guy who was the cabin attendant came up and said, "Oh, are you okay there?" I said, "Oh, can I have the extended seat belt?" Which is never the nicest
Of
conversation to
course,
have.
yeah, yeah,
And he said, "Oh, sorry, you can't use the extended seat belt there because it's an emergency exit seat. You're going to have to have it either fit into the normal one or move seats." And I was like, and obviously I want that conversation to be as low key as possible, because then suddenly there's like 3 or 4 rows of people involved in this now, because he's looking for somewhere for me to swap seats. So the bloke behind, who, to be fair, wasn't a svelte gentleman himself,
yeah,
he then had to swap seats with me, and I could see the seat at the front isn't particularly comfortable either. It's like a
Mm.
slightly different design, the seat. And I remember just being like so embarrassed about the whole situation. And for the whole flight, I felt like everyone was looking at me going, "Oh, there's the bloke who had to swap seats because he couldn't sit in the one that he was
yeah,
given." And that shame sort of lived with me, and I thought about it quite a lot. And it wasn't something I've thought about for a long time until I
yeah,
went on the flight last week, and ironically got sat in exactly the same seat that I was supposed to sit into.
yeah,
And this time obviously didn't need the extended seat belt. And it just brought it home how far I've come, and how far I'd let myself go, I suppose.
yeah. So let's talk about 2025 then. So New Year's, what aside, and I'll just caveat this because again, I'm fairly passionate about this. So when you just talked about when you haven't had a weight problem, people don't understand what it's like to have a weight problem. And it's usually, I don't know if you agree with this. For me, it's never the weight problem that's the problem because you sort of know you're big. It's not that you don't suddenly wake up and go, "Oh, look at me, I'm big." Was there anything specific that happened at that point, which was the sort of tipping point that said, "Come on, Mark, now's the time. You've got to sort this out." Aside from the physical, because that's fairly obvious, I would think.
I don't think there was one particular, that aeroplane incident certainly was the one that was in my mind for a few months
Yeah,
afterwards. And then I think it got to Christmas, and at Christmas it was always the time where I would be thinking, "Oh, jackpot," because I can just do what I want at Christmas because everybody's overindulging at Christmas,
yeah,
so you
yeah,
can just do. But honestly, I got to like, I think it was probably the 28th, 29th of December that year, the end of 2024, and I was just sick of it. I'd overindulged and like excessed so much on food and alcohol that I just
yeah,
thought, you know what, I feel like sick of myself here. And New Year's Eve, which is usually, you'd have a couple of beers and see I didn't have a single drink on New Year's Eve. I just sat there thinking, I've got to find something that can, and I started my social media like so many people did. I started a social media account on TikTok on New Year's Eve 24 to try and sort of give myself another foothold, to try and, I was thinking to myself, if I make that promise to a bunch of strangers on the internet that I'm going to do something with my life, then maybe somehow I'll be able to keep it this time, because keeping the promise to myself and to the people in my family or my friends isn't working for me. I need
yeah.
to put it out somewhere publicly where I'm saying this is what I'm going to do, and you lot keep me to account, and that was one of the things that helped me as I moved through my journey, to be fair.
Yeah, and funny enough, you reading the script here. That was going to be my next question. So, what was the what happened then? So, what was this? What did you do basically? If you don't,
Yeah.
to get you on this path, what was the?
Yeah, no problems. I mean, I started the year, and I basically just cut out. I just went, like I would normally have done on a diet. I just tried to eat within a calorie deficit, to try and be, get out walking and do bits and pieces, because I was so heavy that I couldn't really do a lot of activity at that
Yeah,
point. And I don't know if you know this part of my story, but I started taking weight loss medication on the 9th of January as well.
right.
So last year I started taking weight loss medication, which, it's, to be honest, proved a game changer for me in terms
Yeah,
of giving me a platform to stay within a calorie deficit, because it just within the 3 weeks of starting to take the medication, I knew that that was going to be a success for me, because it did just take off the edge of wanting a beer or wanting that greasy food or something like that. And that allowed me to then start losing weight, start seeing some results, but then also start getting more active, get more energy, feel like doing more exercise. And I knew if I could lose weight, in the back of my head all the time, I wanted to do some running, because I really enjoyed it when I'd done it in
Yeah,
2014. I'd felt like accomplished making the progress I had back then. So it was always on my mind that that was going to be the thing I wanted to do, because one of the things I feel really passionate about in terms of the weight loss medication, lots of people will talk about it and say, yeah, but what happens when you stop taking it? Yeah, but name me a medication that keeps working when you stop taking it. Do you know what I mean? That's just such a redundant point. So what I wanted to do
yeah,
was make sure that I built new habits, use that period to really embed new habits, a new lifestyle, new activity, new eating habits, all these
yeah,
things that is normal for the majority of the population, or most of the population, I guess. That's always been alien to me. I wanted to try and make sure that I used that period wisely, because I knew that
yeah,
was maybe the key to the future.
yeah,
And that's what I've been really passionate about, and what I'll tell everyone who talks about that side of things,
yeah.
that you
Absolutely,
need to do
absolutely.
that.
So, I mean, just to caveat firstly, so for those of you listening, because in case we talk about stone, so the heaviest you was about 350 pounds. Yes, about 350 pounds, which is about 159 kilos ish. And we'll talk about the
Yeah,
actual numbers that you
yeah,
lost, just because obviously we get people from all over the world, so
yeah. Sure.
they
Sorry
might
about
not know what
that.
the stone is, what the way we use it in this country. So, with the because you mentioned the weight loss treatment, I'm quite obviously I'm very passionate about that because I've been I've been in the weight loss game personally and professionally for 15 years. So I think it's quite a new. It's not a new thing in the sense of people using external things. I'll use that expression, but one thing I always say is that I think, and I spoke to somebody else about this. They lost quite a bit of weight, but they also said, "Well, I was being sensible with what I ate. I was tracking my calories. I was doing." So they were doing it as they were using it like AI, because obviously that's the buzz thing now, as a tool. So it's a
Yeah.
tool. What people are doing, unfortunately, now is using it like a diet, like aesthetic. So I'm just going to do that for 2 months and not change anything else. So my take on that is, and I'd love your thoughts on this, Mark, is I think treatments like that for someone who, like you, who was 350 pounds, 25 stone, 150, is to look, you need to save your life. We need to intervene here.
100%. And I've had so many conversations with people who've got in touch with me, people who I know, people who on the internet, whatever it might be, saying, "Oh, I weigh this much. I need to lose 2 stone for the summer." And I'm like, yeah,
Yeah,
just
it's not.
lose
Yeah,
2 stone then.
yeah,
Like, I know that sounds really flippant from someone who's just told you that I know that weight loss and weight thing is really complex. But yeah, you're right. It's 100% not a quick fix for somebody who's
no,
just had a bad Christmas. Do you know what I mean? It's
yeah,
like,
exactly.
it's definitely not. It's a life-changing intervention for somebody who has tried everything else and just can't get that. I keep using the word foothold, because that's what I felt like it was. I would have a week maybe, but I couldn't ever string together the 3 or 4 weeks you need to try and then
Yeah,
build the habit.
when you're
So
approaching 50 and you're 350 pounds,
yeah,
you are, pardon the expression, you're dicing as a man, you're dicing with death.
of course you are.
You could
100%.
drop, you can drop. I've known people drop down in their 50s from whatever. So I think we have to make that clear distinction. And again,
Yeah.
got to be, I get quite passionate about this. Like you've got to make that clear distinction between we're trying to intervene to save somebody's life. We're not trying to give you a ticket to just lose a stone for the summer.
No, I mean, I was type 2 diabetic. I
Yeah,
was borderline needing hospital treatment when I was first diagnosed with diabetes because of the reading that I was at.
yeah,
My blood pressure, they were concerned about that. I was even having to monitor my blood pressure daily at home for a period in 2024 because they were so concerned. I got high cholesterol. There was all kinds of things were going on with my health at the time that have have now improved so significantly. It's actually ridiculous. Do you know what I mean? Like
yeah,
my
absolutely.
my
Yeah,
my diabetes is under control. I'm sort of not even registered as well. I'm not even the numbers don't tell you I'm even pre-diabetic. My blood pressure, all my medication that I'm taking for that side of things has been vastly reduced.
yeah,
Um, because of the intervention of what was able to be given to me at the start of 2024 25. So yeah, look, it isn't an easy fix or a quick fix for someone. It is a long-term medication for somebody who's suffered from these. I don't I, the complexity of weight loss and all that side of things. It's difficult to fathom if you've never been there.
yeah.
I get accused of cheating and doing it the easy way, and you know what? That's fine if people want to say that, but what my defense is, if I need the amount of defense, which I don't really think I do, but is I kind of haven't, what I've done hasn't affected anybody else. You know, it's
Yeah,
my
absolutely.
choice, and it doesn't affect you. I don't mind how anyone looks after themselves or chooses to lose weight. You know what I mean? And for me, it was a desperation measures. But what I
Yeah.
have tried to do is make sure that I've used the medication responsibly and do it in the best possible way for the long term, rather than have 6 months of losing weight and then stop taking the medication and then
Yeah.
look back where I was.
Absolutely. I mean, you wouldn't call somebody weak for going to see a psychiatrist if they had real bad mental health problems, would you? And this is what
Yeah,
we're talking about here. I mean, again, we've got to be careful because I get quite again passionate about this being in the weight loss thing. But I think the problem is that we're talking about the top end of the scale here. We are talking about somebody who is not, you're not cheating if you're 25 stone. You're
no,
350 pounds. You're not cheating. You cheat in my opinion. Again, shoot me down, controversial. You're cheating if you do it to lose a stone for your holiday.
yeah, I think there's
That's
an
more
argument for
that's
that.
more like cheating than trying to, save your life. That's my anyway.
Yeah, absolutely. I would agree with you. I mean, look, I feel passionately about it as well because I would be a big advocate for it because you know I never hide if someone asks me about how I went about losing. I had a
Yeah.
conversation. Someone commented on my social media last week saying, "Oh, did you take the medication?" And I was like, "Oh yeah, did you?" Oh, and I said, "Oh, does that mean I'm disqualified now from the
Yeah,
weight loss?" And she said, "Oh
absolutely.
no, it doesn't. It doesn't mean that. It's just I'm disappointed." I'm like,
I
no,
think the problem, yeah, I think the only problem with that is that where somebody says they didn't do it, somebody says they lost it naturally and they didn't. I think that, and there are people out there, there's apparently some quite famous people who've lost sort of 10, 12,
yeah,
and they've said, oh, it was all nat, but actually the truth is they've had a bit of help. And I think as long as you own your journey, like the person that I know who lost, quite a bit compared to this person's sort of height, the weight loss was quite a lot because in terms of like if you're a lot shorter, and it was just a conversation. She went, "I did it," and I think what we got to do is we've got to reduce the stigma around it and
one
people
hundred
embarrassed
percent,
to
one
say
hundred
like I
percent.
did this because I think the thing is it's like you said, as long as you're not bothering anybody else, then I don't see. But the problem is, it's always, and I know this from being in the weight loss game for as long as I've been, it's always attacked. Some people say to me, I mean, granted, I only lost what 5 stone, 70 odd pounds. I say only 30 odd kilos. People would say to me, "Oh, you weren't that fat," and it's like, well, or you didn't look that fat. Well, I was, I'm
Yeah,
not. So I think it's one of those things where it's like running, as we'll come on to, where if you do something, it's always going to be attacked. But actually, for the people that you inspire, because you clearly do with your following, so another reason why I wanted to get in touch with you, because clearly there are people who are invested in your journey. Then, but you're always, I mean, honestly, I say this with running, the amount, I put some up the other day. I think I put some up about International Women's Day, like a motivational post about running,
yeah,
and people got offended and people were giving me grief about it. I thought, if you can't win,
no.
you put sort of this the most motivational thing, and people, that's social media. So,
I think it's just odd that like when you've lost weight now, it's almost like expected that people will come out and have to say, oh, and I didn't have any help. I did this. Now you have to like caveat it, and I'm
yeah.
kind of I'm kind of beleaguered as to why you need to do that.
Yeah,
Like.
I get it. So the next question on that, actually, fun enough, is what did you do alongside that? Because did it suppress your appetite? Was it one of those ones that,
Yeah, so
yeah,
effectively, yeah, for the first 24 or 48 hours, it was remarkable, really. It was something that I'd never experienced before in
yeah,
terms of, and it took away. I mean, for the first 3 or 4 months of last year, I didn't have a drink of any kind, which, as I say, I didn't class myself as having an alcohol problem, but
yeah,
I certainly had a regular drink.
yeah,
So to go 4 months without a drink was remarkable for me, and that certainly gave me a grounding and a platform to be able to then really concentrate. So I focused 100% on my calories. I was eating probably 1,400 to 1,600 calories every day,
okay,
uh, marking it religiously. Everything I ate and drank for about 3 or 4 months until I realized that I was probably eating and drinking exactly the same things on rotation. So I kind of relaxed how stringently I was counting the calories because I knew effectively because I was eating all
yeah,
this. I'm no cook. It was Slim and World meals. It was my protein meals, things like that. It wasn't
yeah,
particularly.
yeah,
I'm
yeah, of
trying to invest now in more nutritious stuff
course, yeah,
because as I move forward. But at the time, it was like literally, let's find the calories that I can eat that's going to keep me satisfied. Sensible amount of calories, I'd like to think. And then try and increase the activity, try and get out for a walk, try and, just do some gentle activity
Yeah,
because I did try and do the couch to 5K first day. I filmed it actually in that video. Then when I updated it after my weight loss, the first part of that video joined with the afterwards was something that went quite viral. But that first day of couch to 5K that I tried, I actually didn't run anymore after that for probably about a month because I realised
yeah,
I was probably doing more harm than good by
yeah,
trying
and the
to
joints, yeah,
to
yeah,
run on my knees at that point.
yeah,
So even though the running is only quite light in the early days of couch to 5K, at that
yeah.
point it still feels like a massive effort to do like a minute of running. But it's a remarkable program. That and other programs similar to couch to 5K are the gateway for people who want to get into running,
Absolutely,
and
mate. Absolutely. Yeah.
they're amazing.
I think it's important. One thing you mentioned there, which is the other example of the person that I know that lost quite a bit of weight, is the fact that you were counting you were in a calorie deficit and counting your calories and doing that.
Yeah.
So you were doing the stuff anyway, but then having so I think that's really really important. You weren't bypassing the hard work, and the hard work
No,
for everybody is recording what you eat, keeping a log. That in 15 years of weight loss coaching, everybody struggles with that.
well,
You know,
it's the cornerstone, isn't it? It's calorie deficit.
absolutely.
So I get people coming on all the time to me saying, "Oh, I've stalled a little bit. I haven't lost any weight in 2 months." And my advice
Yeah.
always to them, and I'm not a qualified person to not yourself, I haven't got any experience in it really. I mean, look, I find it kind of ironic when people ask me for tips when I've been overweight for 25 years of my life. But anyway, I kind of just say, look, you've got to have a reset. Go back to all the things that you were doing in the very
Yes.
first week. Count all your calories. Make sure
Yeah.
you know what your calorie deficit is. All these basic things, because if you aren't losing weight and you're overweight, the chances are you're not in a calorie deficit.
Yeah. Well, unless well, yeah.
Obviously, there are caveats
What
to that.
the way
Yes.
to differentiate that is, and I'll say this might help people. So always the way to differentiate that is that if you will always lose, you will never gain body fat if you're not in a calorie deficit, if that makes sense. Now you can
Yeah.
retain water. There's things that can happen
Yes.
physiologically, but body fat is only stored. But you will lose body fat eventually. It might go at different rates and different levels depending on where you're
Yeah.
starting from and your time, your hormones, and all that. But if you're in a calorie deficit, you will lose weight, and it's
Yeah.
as simple as that. And if you're not in a calorie deficit, and the thing is, you've got to get the evidence. It's like similar to running. You know, you can say your run's terrible, but actually, you need to get evidence to know was it really terrible or not. So yeah, because you don't know, dear. Because
Yeah.
when we use emotion, like when you get on the scales, it's like, how did you feel before you got on the scales? Okay, I got on the scales. It told me a number I didn't like. I feel like rubbish. Well, that's an emotional response to data.
Yeah. Yeah.
And again, this is as I said, I get quite passionate on this. So, what was it then? So just for the listeners, so we lost 12 stone.
12 stone, just 12 stone. Oh
12
yeah.
stone again, which is 168 pounds, which is about 76 kilos in total. Was there a point during the process when you felt, I think I might have cracked this now?
Um, well, I mean, honestly, it was really strange because about 3 weeks in, I knew that I was onto something, and that as early as that, as early as that, by the end of January last year, I was thinking I could actually do this here. I
Yeah,
was feeling like this is unbelievable, and then it became a sort of my focus then was to stay consistent, to stay focused, and
yeah,
to make sure that I just stayed patient with it because I needed to, obviously it was going to take a lot of time to get the weight off that I wanted to get off.
yeah,
So it was just about staying patient. But look, I look back at photos where I think I'd cracked it. So like last summer, the football club I worked with got to Wembley in the FA Trophy final,
right,
and I got bought a suit and I could fit into a suit and I could
right.
go to Wembley and I looked at like what I thought $1 million. And that was last June. And I look back at the photos from that then and think, oh, you hadn't cracked it then, had you? You were still quite overweight at that
Yeah,
point. But at that point, because of where I'd been, I felt so good by last summer that it just kept on driving me on. And I just knew that, I needed to stick to it. And then I had people on social media kind of relying on me and invested in my journey that really drove me on as well, if I'm being
absolutely.
honest.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
yeah, I just yeah, it was just a culmination. And I keep telling people when they ask for advice on that side is just stay consistent, stay
yeah.
focused, stay optimistic about it, because if you're optimistic and you're feeling upbeat about what's going to happen, then I think that can play a part as well in weight
Absolutely,
loss.
mate. Absolutely.
Um,
So, yeah, just to stop me ranting and raving on about weight loss, because I could be here for a while. Yeah, honestly. What part has running? You've touched on this briefly. Let's talk about the running side now. So, what part has running played in this whole journey for you, Mark?
Yeah, well, I've seen a few running content creators saying like, "Oh, you want to find out your why," and my why is really clear when it comes to running, and it's to protect the progress I've made.
Yeah,
I absolutely love the feeling you get from running, and I knew that I was going to love that feeling because I'd had a taste of it before 10,
yeah,
12 years ago. So it was something I always wanted to get into, and then I think there was a penny drop moment at the back end of last year. I downloaded the app Runner, and that was the real, game changer, I think, in terms of making the progress. But one of the things I always remember is I went online about November, December last year and said, "Oh, I can't get my 5K time down. Why can't I get my 5K to be quick? I want to be faster." And someone in the comments said, "Well, why do you want to be faster? You're going to go to the Olympics." And it really resonated with me. And I kind of thought, you know what, that's true. And since then, I've just kind of concentrated on just being regular,
okay,
consistent, getting out there 3 times a week if I can. And I found that the cornerstone was that if you did that, your pace improved naturally anyway. Do you know what I mean? If you weren't thinking about it,
yeah. Funny that.
I ended up getting quicker anyway. Not that I'm a particularly quick runner now, and it doesn't really bother me how quick I run, but the progress that I was able to make in a short space of time just through being consistent always surprises me, and I'm determined now to keep pressing on with it to see how far I can go.
Any particular reason why running? Because obviously there's different types of fitness things.
Yeah,
So,
I honestly don't know. If someone had said to me in my 20s, "You're going to be a runner," I'd have been absolutely astonished, because it was like I used to see people running and I would be like, "What are you doing that?"
yeah,
Now, when I drive past people running, I'm actually jealous of them that I'm
jealous. Yeah,
not out there with
yeah,
them running.
absolutely.
But I don't know. I always say to people, try and find an activity you like. If running's not for you, then you probably won't stick to it. And that's why I always would endorse building up steadily as well through one of those programs, because I feel like if you step out your front door and try and run 5K and you can't do it, you'll sicken yourself and probably never go back to it.
Yeah,
So, but no, I don't know. I just thought, well, people will say, "Oh, you want to go on you want to go on a bike, you want to, go swimming. This is the best for it." It was always just, I wanted to go out and run. I was intrigued by trying to do a park run at first, and could I get to doing a park run and then kick on from there. So no, I don't know why I picked running, but it was always something that was in the back of my mind that if
yeah.
I could get down to a weight where I could run, that I would.
What's your progress been like with your running then?
Yeah, amazing. As I say, the runner app has really helped me. So I built a program to run to a 10K that I did in February or March time. That was my first ever like official
This
race.
this year,
So yeah, in
26. Yeah,
February this yeah
yeah,
2026,
yeah,
I did a race in Durham, which was a 10K, the first time I'd ever done an official race.
yeah.
And then I did a half marathon about 3 or 4 weeks ago. I did my first ever official half marathon,
Yeah. Where was that,
which
Mark?
so it was the inaugural Hartlepool half marathon. Well, I say inaugural. There was a Hartlepool half marathon in the 80s, I believe. People have picked
Right.
it up.
Okay.
This is just a relaunched Hartlepool half marathon. So it was good. It was challenging. I found it really hard. At the end, I was absolutely shattered.
Yeah.
But the achievement of being able to say I've done a half marathon is incredible. But the progress, honestly, that I look back at where I've come from in terms of my running and being able to be consistent and get that progress.
Yeah.
And now I look back and think, how on earth did I get out the door in all those cold winter mornings to do all them runs? I stagger myself, I surprised myself that I was able to do that, because
Absolutely. Yeah.
but it was the consistency I put in. I was rewarded with the progress. So I'm really buzzing about how far I've been able to come, and now I want to try and push myself to see how far I can go.
Brilliant. And you've got quite a bit of you got quite a bit of a following on social media through this journey. Is that primarily just from your weight loss journey that's happened, or is it?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I've tried to make a transition from weight loss towards the running and activity
Okay.
side of things. So I think a lot of I think I can probably split it. So on TikTok, it's probably more weight loss
Right. Okay. Yeah.
following. Whereas on Instagram, I think it's probably more to do with the running side. Although, if I do a video where I show the before and after, they tend
Yeah.
to go very well in terms on Instagram, particularly. They'll pick me up a bit of a following. So, but yeah, I have got quite a lot of people who follow me for the running now, and if I
Good.
go to running events, people will come up and say, "Oh, you're on Instagram, you're on TikTok now," which I
Right.
find quite bizarre.
Yeah.
But I love it, honestly, and it's one of the things that does drive me on. Possibly on them cold winter mornings, thinking, "Oh, people will be expecting a video from me." Maybe that was the extra push I needed to get out the door
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
go
Yeah.
and do it.
Absolutely.
So
Yeah.
that it helps. It
I think
helps.
it's got its drawbacks, of course, but I think it's when you can create an extra level of like you class yourself as a little bit of a role model, which I mean, my thing's always been consistency, Mark. It's through
Yeah.
weight loss, through fitness, through running, through everything I do. My benchmark has always been you're consistent
Yeah.
because everybody can be consistent. It doesn't really matter what you're consistent at, but
Yeah, that's
everybody can
true.
be. You can't argue with that. I'm very
Yeah.
big on principles versus tactics, and a principle is because tactics, like going back to weight loss, uh, principle is eat less. Tactic is which diet you use to eat less, but the
Yeah.
principle's always eat less, isn't it? You know what I mean by that? And with running,
Yeah.
it's be consistent. So the best runners just show up and they keep showing up. So I class myself as a role model in the sense of I say, well, I need to be consistent because people, it doesn't really matter what I do. What I do is irrelevant. It's what I like to do. But you will always see me be consistent because that's what
Yeah.
I think is the right role model to set. So I think that's really good to have that sort of accountability to say there are people watching me and that's okay. That's what these platforms, in my opinion, should be used for.
Yeah, 100%. And look, I love the fact that people enjoy watching my journey and feel invested. I get a lot of comments from people saying, and it's, nice to see someone normal because I think we've got quite a lot of running influencers who are going out there and smashing, kilometers in less than 5 minutes and striding through things and making it look really easy. Whereas, I think people appreciate the realism, the normality. I mean, I'm not running at the moment. I've got a bit of a sciatic problem, and I think people have quite liked the honesty with which I've dealt with that
Yeah.
sort of setback in the last week or so.
Yeah.
And that's what I try and do. I try and run with a smile on my face and be a normal northeast bubbly lad, show my personality, but also try and inspire people to show that you can do this. It's never too late to change. Never ever too late. There's no circumstance with which you can't get back to where you need to be. And certainly in terms of running, if you're just consistent and you can make that progress no matter what your starting point was.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. It's cool actually, because that leads me on to my sort of final couple of questions for you, Mark. So the first one I ask is if there's somebody out there who's in a similar place to you or struggling maybe with weight, with some physical, and they need to change, what would you say to them?
It's so hard, isn't it? It's such a deep and complex situation that they find themselves in. But just know that there is a way out. I didn't think there was. I didn't think there was any
Yeah.
chance of me finding my way to this. If you'd have showed me a picture of myself now at the start of 2025, I wouldn't have believed that that was the progress I was going to make. So it's entirely possible, and the feeling of that achievement, that accomplishment when you're able to do it is like nothing I can compare it to. So I suppose just don't ever give up hope. Don't ever give up hope because there's always a way forward. No matter
Yeah.
what situation you find yourself in, there's always a route back.
Yeah.
Um, I didn't think there was, and I can understand the negativity that some people have about it. But trust me that if you're more powerful than you think, and you can definitely do it.
As it's sort of June, it's Men's Mental Health Awareness Month. Anything specific for men?
Yeah, I think I think men struggle to talk about it, don't they?
Yeah.
They'll bottle it up and they'll hide away. And like I probably did, make a joke out of my weight and get the joke in first and no one ever really. I mean, a couple of my close friends, to be fair, I remember one of my close friends saying to me, "Do you know what? You're gonna have to do something here because you're gonna end up dying." And they were that brutal with me.
Yeah.
And I think if you've got a close friend who you can open up to, and I had numerous conversations with them about it, saying, how trying to explain where I felt and how low I was in terms of my mental health and my weight at times. And I think it is good to try and open up and speak to your close friends about it and try and work out a way forward with them because it is easier to just bottle it up and never talk about it and just put your front on and you know
Yeah.
put your jacket on, get out the door, put your smile on, get through it, get back in your house and be miserable again. And that's the cycle that I think I was in. But I think if you can get out there and talk and try and be positive, then it certainly helps for sure.
Absolutely. I think the first thing that I always say is that men need to accept that they've got feelings.
Yeah.
We you have, and it's okay to have feelings. You know, that's the first place you need to start, because men think they've been taught that it's wrong to feel, and no, men have got the same feelings that every women have, and you know, we've all got feelings, and you need to accept that those feelings are there, and it's what those feelings that drive often the behaviors that get us into trouble. But without the acknowledgement of those feelings, you're always going to struggle. So very good, very powerful. Thank you. And my penultimate question, which is my philosophical question, Mark, which is, how has this whole experience changed you?
Oh wow. Honestly, I, I think if you'd asked people who knew me 2 years ago, they'd have said, "Oh, Mark Simpson, yeah, he's a really confident fella, isn't he?" But I wasn't. I
Yeah,
was putting the front up. But now the confidence I have, you know, the self belief I've got, just the like I did a video last week on my social media. I went on holiday and I was able to walk around the pool with my shirt off. And
yeah,
like no one understands that who
no,
hasn't had a
yeah.
weight problem,
I
because
still
they're
get
like,
nervous.
yeah,
It's mad. I mean, pretty decent shape because obviously it's what I do. But
yeah.
I still get nervous, Mark, taking my top off around the pool, because it's so deeply
Embedded, yeah,
ingrained that yeah,
absolutely,
yeah,
100%. And
yeah,
like I was, even when I was recording the video, I was thinking, is this all right? What's happening?
yeah, no,
Um,
yeah,
but yeah, things like that, little things that mean so much. And the other month, um, I was running. I'd done like 15 kilometers, which is a long way for me at the
yeah, yeah,
time, and I got abused, some heckles. From a guy who ran out of his car and started like mock running down the road, filming me. And if that had been 12 months previous, it'd have buckled me.
yeah,
I would never have gone out running again, I don't think. But I like laughed it off and thought, you know what? Like, I'd run 15 kilometers, mate. If that's the best that you can do to entertain yourself on a Sunday morning,
yeah,
just to have that confidence and that self belief, I've made so much, so many strides in that regard. And I feel like I'm actually living a life again. Do you know what I mean? Rather
yeah.
than putting a front on and just pretending and going through the motions. It's like I've got a second chance at life.
Yeah, fantastic. And final question for me: what's next for you then? You touched on this earlier, so what's next?
Yeah, I mean, at the minute, short term, I want to try and get rid of this hamstring issue I've got. But over time, I'd like to try and that's because it sounds ridiculous to even say it out loud. This is why I'm stalling on it. But I'd like to try and run a marathon.
Okay,
I'm actually entered into the Manchester Marathon next year.
I've got you're in. Okay,
Yeah, I'm in the Manchester Marathon.
it's a
I'm
good one,
also
mate.
in
It's
the
a good one to
ballot,
do.
the
Yeah,
impossible ballot for the London Marathon as well. So I'll probably be Manchester rather than London, I imagine. But yeah, so I've got the Great North Run in September,
are you
which
doing the Great North?
I'm
Yeah, it's
really
good. Yeah,
looking
really good,
forward to
really good,
because
mate. Really good.
yeah, I'm running it. If you don't mind me mentioning, I'm running it with my two sisters for the foundation we set up in my father's memory, the Roy Simpson MBE Foundation.
Right.
So
Okay.
it'll be quite emotional because I've never run it before. My two sisters have.
Right.
So I think for all three of us to run the Great North Run in September is going to be a huge moment, a huge
Yeah. We'll
milestone
pop the
for.
link in the description for that. Roy Simpson Foundation. Yeah.
It's the Roy Simpson MBE Foundation. So
Yeah.
your roysimpsonfoundation.org.uk
Okay.
is
We'll put that in the
the
description. Yeah.
address, and there'll be all the details about if anyone would like to sponsor us for that. But yeah, it's just going to be an amazing occasion, regardless of the meaning behind it. Just to be able to run that with my two sisters when 2 years ago I was a million miles away from being able to
Yeah, mate.
think
They
about
do.
something
Yeah.
like that, and I'm
They
so
do. They
looking
do you
forward to it.
proud, mate, up there in the north. They do you proud up there in the north. It is. It is some. I mean, I've done London Marathon and that's something else. The amount of people, it's just unreal. The Great North. I've never honestly, because London's a big place. So like
Yeah,
you got all these people in London, but it's a big place, right?
yeah,
But the Great North, because it's a little bit smaller. It's not a small
yeah.
place, of course, Newcastle, but it's a little bit. Honestly, the amount of people, you've never seen anything like it. It's just.
No.
It's and they the support's fantastic. You
Well,
know.
I think people tell us so much, and the enthusiasm you've got for it there tells you everything you need to know. And my sisters who've run it a few times, I think they're excited for me to experience it for the first time because they know how good it is and how much I'm going to enjoy it.
Yeah, mate. Yeah.
So hopefully I can just stay fit and healthy between now and then and do that and take another half marathon off, and then I've made a promise to myself. I've come home from holiday and I just want to see how fit and strong I can get. Not,
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
let's see, in terms of my running, I want to try and build my fitness and my strength around being able to run better and
Yeah,
longer.
yeah,
But I've never been able to do that in my life. I've never ever put my fitness and my health first. And now I've got to, my grand old age of 46, and I'm thinking, let's challenge myself. How fit and strong can I actually get this old body? So that's
absolutely,
the
mate.
next few
Well,
months.
at the age of 28, I can remember being out of breath doing my shoelaces up
Yeah,
when I started my journey, and I've ran 16 marathons. Most of
amazing,
them in my most of them in my 40s, and my best in my 40s as well.
amazing.
So, if you just said to me at 28, smoking, drinking, 30 kilos, 70 pounds heavier than I'm now, that I'd run 16, run 5K, let
Yeah,
alone 16. So there's the only limit to the ones you place on yourself.
strength.
You again, I'm conscious of time, but you find, I always say to people, find out, because you'll know where your limit is, but find out where it is. Don't just prejudge. Just go, let's just be curious here and let's see. And you might get to a point when you go, you know what, I've had enough here. This
Yeah,
is
yeah.
where I am. But I tell you what, mate, just what's that wonderful expression that I once heard? You may not be able to do all you find out, but find out all you can do.
That is a good expression. I'll live by that. I did. I finished the half marathon. I turned to my sister at the end of the half marathon. I said, I'm never going to be able to do a marathon. But then within a few days, I was thinking, I'm going to do a marathon. Like,
Yeah. I say to people sometimes, I say, when you do a half, it's that sort of waypoint. You get to the end of the half, you stand there and you go, oh, that again. And you go through
yeah,
oh, that again.
it's
But
unfathomable.
yeah, it is. But like with the weight loss journey, with all the journeys, it's just like the old classic again. You can quote things. The Martin Luther King one, faith is, you don't need to see the whole staircase, just the next step. And
Yeah.
it's just the next step and the next step, like you did, the next step, and you never know where it might take you. So it'll be great for to see your journey and everybody else to see your journey. So thank you, mate. Anything else from you?
No, no, I just appreciate your time and thank you to everyone. If people are watching who do follow me on social media, just know that your support means a lot.
Yeah.
It is a really crucial element of where I've been able to get to and where I hope to go.
Good. Well, if you don't, on that note, if you don't follow Mark, you can follow him at shrinking_Simo on Instagram. That's at _shrinking Shimo. Everything will be in the description, of course, here. So please go over and drop Mark a follow and watch his journey. If you are the sort of person who's perhaps starting a journey or looking to start a journey, who's maybe struggling with the weight a little bit, or potentially a man who's struggling with your weight and or mental health, then yeah, follow Mark, see where he's come from, and yeah, you can see what's possible, in a short space of time with the right application and using the right tools in the right way. So I appreciate your openness and vulnerability and honesty today, Mark. It means a lot, and hopefully the listeners will get a lot from it. So thank you very much. So thank you to everybody for listening as always. Don't forget to subscribe to the podcast wherever you get your podcast from. That's Apple or Spotify. As always, if you want to drop me a quick review as well or a comment, that really, really helps me. And if you know anybody who you feel this might be of value to, please share this with them, because I'm sure that this will add a lot of value to particularly people who are struggling and perhaps starting a journey and wondering what's possible for them. You can follow me as always at 12 Months to Marathon on Instagram. So hop over there, follow me. And as always, if you go to the link in my bio, you can join my free running community for the over 35s, where we can take you away from the noise of social media and we can connect away from that and give you some additional support. So Mark, I really, really appreciate your time again. Thank you very much. And I will speak to everybody again very soon indeed. Thanks, Mark.
Cheers, John.